welcome to this very special edition of News Center, coming to you live for the final day in Davos. I'm Moon Guan-young. Now, this is the fourth and the final day of the Davos Forum, World Economic Forum, a 46th of its kind, under the theme of Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And it is, like you can see, a warm, a nice and sunny day out there. A lot of skiers out there, as well as all the business people, 2,500 of them, business people from the political arena, social and cultural leaders, gathered here for 4 days to discuss the most pressing issues of the world. Now that it is the final day, many of them have taken off already and skiing in the resorts or snowboarding, or have taken off to their respective countries. But we're going to delve into more stories from Davos. But first, let's get a check of the day's top stories. I'm going to toss you over to our Seoul studio. Our Mark Broom is standing by. Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Kon-young, for your nice introduction. And we'll be connecting with Kon-young and the rest of our team in snowy Davos later in our newscast. Now, one place where we don't have much snow, but we do have mind-numbing cold, is Seoul, and that is where we are going to start tonight. The big chill has been biting hard in the Korean capital and the rest of the country. The severe cold wave has tightened its grip on Korea, with temperatures tumbling to potentially life-threatening levels. It has gotten so cold that the nation's weather agency has issued its first cold wave warning in 5 years for Seoul and its surrounding areas. It's currently around minus 15 degrees Celsius in Seoul. The mercury is forecast to dip to a bone-chilling minus 18 degrees Celsius in the Korean capital overnight. Now, the last time it was that cold in Seoul was January 2001, so 15 years ago. Now, unusually, Korea's southern resort island of Jeju is also under a cold weather warning, its first in 7 years. Officials say the number of people visiting parks and outside attractions dipped significantly today, with more people going to indoor locations like shopping malls, cafes and museums. Temperatures should start returning to seasonal norms from early next week, though. Now, a snowstorm that is predicted to be the strongest in a century is hitting the east coast of the United States. Washington, D.C. is expected to be the worst hit. The U.S. capital is forecast to be buried in up to 60 centimeters of snow, but an estimated 80 million people are estimated to be affected by the storm to varying degrees of severity. A state of emergency has been declared in 10 states now, and a significant chunk of the U.S. transport system is practically at a standstill. More than 9,000 flights to date have been cancelled. At least 10 people have been reported dead in storm-related crashes as well. The snowstorm is forecast to continue through Sunday. Now, the United States has expressed its support for five-way talks on denuclearizing North Korea, calling it a useful step. Seoul-based Yonhap news agency reported the statement on Saturday, citing a spokesman for the U.S. Embassy in Seoul. On Friday, President Park Geun-hye proposed the five-way dialogue involving members of the long-stalled six-party talks minus North Korea. The countries involved are South Korea, the U.S., Japan, China and Russia. Now, following the U.S. statement, South Korea's presidential office once again reiterated that the proposed five-way talks are meant to strengthen coordination among the five nations within the framework of the six-party dialogues. Now, pundits say the presidential office was trying to ease diplomatic tensions with China, the country that chairs the six-party talks. Following President Park's comments, Beijing called for all parties, including North Korea, to sit down for talks as soon as possible in what was seen as a rejection of President Park's proposal. South Korea's rival political parties have agreed to pass two pending bills related to the economy and North Korean issues before the end of the month. The agreement came on Saturday during talks between the leaderships of the ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition Minju Party of Korea. Parliamentary approval will be given the green light during a general meeting next Friday. Now, one of the bills is aimed at revitalizing business activities in South Korea, while the other focuses on improving the livelihoods of North Koreans and inter-Korean relations as well. The leaders of the two parties will meet again on Sunday to try and reach agreements on passing other pending bills like anti-terrorism and labour reform bills. Global oil prices have surged above the $30 a barrel level, ending a massive slide that really got going early this year. Expectations for more demand fueled the rally. Hwang Jie has the details.
Oil jumped 9% on Friday to more than $32 a barrel on the New York Mercantile Exchange. The gain in West Texas Intermediate for March delivery came on the back of hopes for boosted energy demand, stemming from the harsh winter weather and fresh stimulus measures by major central banks. President of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, has hinted at more monetary easing, while market analysts are also expecting Japan to expand its asset purchasing program later this month. The rebound put the brakes on the worst start to a year for global shares. Stocks on Wall Street went up 2% on Friday. But not all market watchers are positive about the rally, saying it could be short-lived, with downward pressure remaining on the supply side due to factors like the lifting of international sanctions on Iran.
We've got a lot more supply coming online. OPEC decided in December not to cut production levels. So I don't see increased demand compensating for all that increase in supply. But markets are excited, and we've seen the price of oil go up as a result.
The gloomy forecasts about oil prices that once almost reached $150 a barrel in 2008 also persist due to concerns about China's slowing growth. China posted its slowest growth in a quarter of a century last year, fueling concerns of sluggish oil demand. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Well, that wraps up the news segment of our bulletin tonight, this special edition of News Centre. We are going to sign off now and pass the baton over to our Moon Gonyong, who is at the World Economic Forum, as we can see there in Davos, which wraps up its 4-day run today. So, Gonyong, over to you.
Well, thank you, Mark, and I will take over from now on. All right, so I'm coming to you live from Davos. This is the 4th and the final day of the World Economic Forum, the 46th of its kind here in Davos clusters. Now, on this final day, I have with me a chief correspondent from TV2 Denmark, his Svenning Dalgaard, and he will be discussing with me the rough overall assessment of the Davos Forum this year. Svenning, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, so you've been here for the past 4 days covering the forum, and you've been to a number of the Davos forums previously. What would you say distinguish this year's forum from previous ones?
The important thing this time is that it's much more practical, it's much more concrete. It deals directly with something which is very important for our industry and for the industry globally. The whole question, are we going into a digitalization, the fourth revolution, as we talk about? What role are robots going to have in our production? Are we going to lose jobs so that the only sort of jobs that we still will have will be hairdressers? That's fairly important for people to know about.
Well, just this morning, making headlines here in Davos was that, global scientists and world leaders were warning against killer robots and that we should really watch out for them. So maybe there's a message there or a concern there that we should be aware of. But, Davos Forum has always been considered as somewhat of a gathering of the rich and the famous, and, they leave with empty promises and not much of practicality, which I guess, like you said, this year was full of practical things. But what would you say were addressed correctly, appropriately, and what weren't? What missed out?
Well, they did address the fact whether our sort of industry can survive. And in this respect, I think it was very interesting that some of the Danish CEOs that I talked to who were here have been saying that they have seen developments already in South Korea, which we are expecting that we will see in our own country. And I myself has been for quite a number of times. I've been to South Korea over the last 40 years, so I've seen it myself. And there's a number of the CEOs who are very impressed to see that there is actually a country that is on the way in this development where we are hoping and planning to go. So that was important here, this Davos, to see that there are different developments in different parts of the world, and we can actually learn from it.
Great. So let's do a recap of the Davos Forum 2016. From day one, what were some of the headline grabbers here from the forum?
Well, you have to face the fact that the headlines are created by the big shots who are coming here. And we have seen the American foreign minister, the American defense ministers, we've seen the Brits, we've seen the French. So the big problems that we face here in the Middle East and in Europe, of course, is the question of refugees and a huge number of people that are moving from poorer countries to richer countries. And there's the other big question is terrorism, the Islamic State, which is spreading out all over the Middle East. So you have those security concerns both in America and Europe, and that has been very important here.
Well, last but not least, we're both leaving. All of us are leaving in a couple of hours as the Davos Forum comes to a close. What is your takeaway from this year's forum? And next time we meet again, what should we have in mind until then?
I think the things that have disappointed me is that we have not heard enough about gender equality, which I think is very important for economy in the whole world, and of course for the matter of how people relate inside the family. We have also seen too little about the relationship between industry and family. So in the end, you have to face the fact that many people only go to work in order to earn money for their own family, and that has not been addressed here.
All right, well, that's something that we look forward to being discussed in next year's forum, hopefully. Sven, thank you so much, and I hope to see you next year.
Thank you. I hope to see you too.
All right, well, this is day 4, but day 3 of the World Economic Forum was also very full of headlines and a lot of figures coming to Davos to address various different issues. Our Kwon So-ah has a wrap-up of day 3 of the World Economic Forum.
The 2016 World Economic Forum is now into its final day in the Swiss alpine town of Davos. On day 3, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry outlined the main challenges facing the world in 2016. He said the world had to provide opportunities for young people, win the campaign against a terror group that calls itself Islamic State, and boost humanitarian aid for refugees.
President Obama is going to host a summit at the UN this fall. And the summit will be the culmination of a sustained, rigorous effort to rally the world community on several fronts to increase by 30% the response to humanitarian funding appeals, the number of regular humanitarian donors, to increase it by at least 10, to at least double the number of refugees who are resettled or afforded other safe and legal channels of admission.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also said his country would take and welcome refugees.
Now, many of you have reached out to me recently in thanks for Canada's compassionate response to the Syrian refugee crisis. But let me tell you something. When I welcomed those first families to Toronto last month, I welcomed them as new Canadians and as the future of the Canadian economy.
Also coming from Trudeau after a separate meeting were remarks aimed at actor and activist Leonardo DiCaprio, as Trudeau urged the Hollywood star to tone down his criticism on Canada's oil and gas sector. When it comes to oil and gas in Mexico, Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto said that low oil prices will not prevent nor limit the country's energy reform that it has been pushing for, along with restructuring in the telecom and finance sector. Day 3 of the Davos Forum was also the 10th anniversary of the Red Foundation, a leading organization against AIDS, co-founded by U2 singer Bono.
So, thank you again. Thank you for being with us on a birthday party. It's rather special. And yeah, Nelson Mandela used to say, it always seems impossible until it's done. And it's not done yet. This is not a problem of the last decade. We're going to finish this problem in the next decade.
Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, said the foundation already has raised $300 million. Bono and Schwab expressed their hopes for a world free of AIDS. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News, Davos.
Well, so the aging population and the world population growing very fast and aging so fast, a report suggests that by year 2020, the number of those aged 60 and above will outnumber children under the age of 5. That's reason enough for the problem of aging society to take center stage, or one of the issues discussed here at the World Economic Forum. And not only is this a discussion amongst the global leaders, the industries are also focusing on that sector and coming up with ways to maintain the health of these older people as we enter into this aging society. Well, I went to meet one of them, this one Korean startup company that's been selected by the World Economic Forum as one of the world's, or the year's, world technology pioneers. Avellino Lab provides eye care professionals with a rapid and inexpensive screening test for corneal dystrophy, a condition that may not affect vision until after correctional surgeries such as LASIK or LASEK.
In parts of Asia where they do same-day LASIK procedures, same-day surgery on the eye, this is very valuable because we can give the results back to the doctor immediately, and they can proceed, and they know with 100% certainty if the patient is safe for proceeding with surgery or not safe, in which case you want to stop the procedure and go to other methods of protection.
The Korean startup is one of the first gene therapy companies to have been selected as one of the World Economic Forum's 25 technology pioneers. The firm's goal is to better prepare people as they live longer, and staying healthy becomes even more important.
Let's say 50 years ago, our lifetime is under 50. Right now is over 80, and in the future, over 100 or 150. It means we need how to keep the vision.
Since 2000, the World Economic Forum has been selecting between 20 to 30 early-stage companies each year to help them grow. Those startups include Google, Airbnb, and Twitter, just to name a few. Of course, no longer are they considered early-stage companies.
Where we really recognised that we need to incorporate these new disruptive forces that are bringing in new technologies, because they're really going to change our future, and many of them already have.
But most importantly is the future of genetic testing, which is the ability to look at data and take large amounts of data for complex conditions and be able to use the IT technology to figure out which genes are important and which ones are not. So we can begin to focus on meaningful genetic regulation of important inherited conditions for the eye and be able to then develop additional tests in that relationship for that purpose.
Well, there are two sides to Davos. During the day, it's all about sessions, discussions, business leaders, negotiations, and all the more. But once the sun comes down, it's a whole another world. Nightlife in Davos. It's another perk that you should not miss out in the Davos experience. Our Kwon So-ah hit the streets.
Talking business, technology, politics, and the crucial issues that matter today.
During the day, I attended the forums. There are some very interesting, not very formal ones and very formal ones with some high-ranking people. And tonight we are. I'm invited to a party. Probably I'm gonna go there.
Since Wednesday, the participants have been coming and going from countless sessions and discussions. Once their official schedules end, though, their feet take them to a totally different atmosphere.
While the buzz is inside the Davos Forum during the day, the streets outside of the venue begin to fill up in the evening. And some say that's when the real networking begins. So let's take a look and go inside.
7 minutes.
Over a drink, attendees like these at this Indian company party are getting to know each other better than they would have in the formal venue halls, meaning the get-togethers act as an extension to their business talks. It's at these gatherings where spontaneous partnerships can be sealed.
And now Davos has also changed. It's not just about the corporates and businesses. It's about all parts of society working towards development.
One of the highlights are the many Nights series that represent countries' participation at the forum. Some of them are especially popular every year.
The quality eating and enjoyable talking and very friendly atmosphere.
It's not every day you get to meet people from all kinds of countries and backgrounds in such a small town. And if you are in the right place at the right time, you could find yourself rubbing shoulders with high-ranking political figures, celebrities, and global business tycoons. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News, Davos.
Well, just imagine, look right behind me, look at the Swiss Alps, and look at the sunny weather. It's no wonder that you will be tempted to go out and ski or do something out there in this beautiful resort town of Davos. Well, now that it is the fourth and final day of the forum, even the business leaders, global leaders, politicians, cultural leaders, and even journalists like myself, once we're done with this work, we want to hit downtown Davos and see what we can do for free time. Our Kim Min-ji shows us what we can do with that little amount of time, free time we might have at the end of the day.
When the World Economic Forum kicks off in the Swiss alpine town of Davos, the population triples from 11,000 to some 30,000 people. It's when hotels get jam-packed and it's almost impossible to find an empty room, especially an affordable one. But even when the annual event is not on, Davos is still pretty busy as it's home to one of Europe's biggest ski resorts. I took a few hours to see what the town has to offer. When you visit another country, you can't leave out the food. So I'm here at a restaurant in Davos where I'm going to try two of the most famous local dishes. The raclette is the name of the type of cheese and the name of the dish itself. The cheese is melted and served with potatoes, pickled pearl onions, and cornichons. Another popular meal is fondue. It's a dish where two or more cheeses are combined with a bit of white wine and melted to gooey, delicious liquid. Then you use your long skewers to dip crusty bread into the cheese. Now that we're nice and full, we venture out into the snow. And just about everywhere you look, you find people in snow gear carrying skis or snowboards.
Usually when you think of skiing, you probably imagine snowy, powdery slopes. But here in Davos, it's common to find people skiing on flat terrain.
It's ideal for beginners, so you see people of all ages, but the high plateau and side valleys in Davos make it a popular spot among cross-country skiers.
Yes, it is okay for me. I do it with pleasure. It's a special technique for skiing. This is a classic.
In addition to cross-country skiing, Davos is famous for regular skiing, and it's often dubbed a winter playground of the rich and famous, with A-list celebrities, business leaders, and royals regularly traversing the slopes. But you can't leave out what you can see from the mountains.
Davos is the highest town in Europe, which means you're treated to one of the best views on the Swiss Alps.
From up here, you can see the main venue for the World Economic Forum, as well as a nice view of the whole town itself.
Oh, it's a gorgeous view for sure. And what brought me up here? Well, I was at the forum and it was just really busy and we were stuck inside quite a bit. And I just thought I couldn't leave Switzerland without seeing mountaintops here.
So instead of rubbing shoulders and talking business the whole time during your stay, take some time to relax and enjoy everything this alpine town has to offer. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News, Davos.
Well, that brings us to the end of our coverage, our 4-day coverage from Davos, live from Davos. This is the fourth and final day of the World Economic Forum, and in a few hours from now, the World Economic Forum will officially come to a close with the closing ceremony, where the founder and Professor Schwab will be giving a closing address. The theme of mastering the fourth industrial revolution, that weaving it together with the economy, politics, our daily lives. This has been a forum where really technology meets economic reality. And that does it for us, our team coverage from Davos as well. This is Moon Gon-young signing off from Davos, and we hope to see you right back here next year. But I will see you back in the studio on Monday.